All right, folks. This is Mark Lee right here, giving y'all the early morning edition report and everything. And of course, a lot of folks are paying attention to the vaccinations and the efforts to get those around the country. But of course, there are other things happening in the world as well. One of those things is the floods that are taking place over there in Europe. So that is one of the stories that I had noticed was that the death toll flooding in Europe has passed 100 and is likely to grow. So most of those that passed away were in Germany, where hundreds are still missing, and search and rescue efforts have been hampered, and that has been due to rain and other things. And of course, some people are saying that some of this is being done because of climate change and things along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see what Shaquille and Nick and others have to say about that. But that is definitely what some people are trying to blame it on. And of course, I've got some other stories that I'm curious to hear what they've got to say about those as well. But definitely, a lot of folks are dealing with the flooding that is taking place there in Europe. And of course, our prayers and thoughts do go out to people that are in that part of the world. And of course, the other thing that I'm hearing is that the Africa's COVID crisis is deepening, but the vaccines are still far away. So there's efforts to get vaccines in the continent of Africa, but those things are not going all that well. And then the other thing that I'm going to bring up to them later on and get their reaction to is that, during the pandemic, a lot of people in major cities were finding what is called gig work. And that gig work was definitely helping them get through and all of that. But now there are reports and surveys of these folks saying that they were not even making minimum wage during that time. So that has made raised some concerns with people with everything from DoorDash to Lyft to a number of the other gig type economies. And then the other thing that is along those same lines is that they have said that some of the wealthiest companies in the world are investing in green economy. And I know a lot of folks are definitely looking forward to hearing more about solar power, wind power, and all of that. But apparently, some of these major companies are not investing in paying what is considered union wages. And in some cases, union wages are even more than those of minimum wage. But definitely, as a matter of fact, I think in most cases, union wages are more than that. But definitely, that is one of the arguments that folks are having, and all along those lines. But I'm going to bring in my good friend and the big boss, Nick Palveda, see what he's got to say about some of these things that I have brought up and all of that. And then, of course, we're going to be waiting to hear from Steve Rao later on. Apparently, he sent me a text that he's had some things going on, but he is hoping to join us before we're done and all of that. So glad to see that you're in the house, Nick. And of course, I'm going to bring in our other folks, which is, of course, is Shaquille Latimer from Down Under, down there in Australia. And of course, my good friend, the master himself, Sasha Starr. So definitely glad to see him in the house as well. So Nick, you heard me bring up a couple of things, including, and we know some of the people that do those kind of works here in this area. But one of the articles that I had seen was that in New York, a lot of folks, have been risking their lives. Of course, they were called, heroes and all of that. And I don't doubt that they were heroes getting people to and from during the height of the pandemic, whether that was getting them their food or whether that was delivering them themselves and all of that. In fact,
wait. DoorDash drivers were heroes, but the firefighters and police that went into 9/11, into the World Trade Center when it was collapsing, they're not heroes. They're just horrible, right wingers. Is that the theory?
That's not the theory. I've heard them actually put together in the same concept because they were saying that they were heroes because they were getting people out and about and doing things of that nature while everybody was cooped up. But they were also putting them in the same breath with our doctors and our nurses, our teachers, and other folks like that. But
we can't hear you, which is actually quite a good thing.
An hour, and
we're quite happy not to hear you.
Half of that.
So you know that we can't hear you. So I had a wonderful idea. I decided to become an Uber Eats driver because I really wanted to take the Bentley out for a drive. And so I registered for Uber Eats because we're in lockdown here. So you need to have an excuse for leaving the house. But then my insurance company said that you couldn't do that kind of work in the vehicle of that kind. So that kind of put a dash to it. But what you're saying is if I had a cheaper car, I too could have been a hero.
That's what a lot of people were doing. I mean, there were whole signs up around this area that were painting these folks as heroes. They'd have a picture of a nurse, or there was like cutouts and everything. There'd be a nurse, a driver, like the driver might be a bus driver or a Uber driver or a another of other kinds of drivers and of course the teachers. And I'm a big fan of teachers, having teachers in my family and all of that, and have always thought the teachers were way underpaid and along those lines. But definitely they were in the same category. And apparently one of the things that the article had pointed out was that there was a higher percentage of people who were doing gig work in New York City. I think they said as much as 75% were doing work in those kind of fields. And of course, they did raise the concerns that some of these folks, which comes down to the ID questions that we've talked about with voting, were undocumented. So that also raised a whole nother issue into the conversation as well. But definitely that's kind of what
I missed that. What was the issue with the ID?
Well, we talked about ID and ID just with the voting, but I was just saying that in their case, they were saying that some of the people that were doing the jobs in New York were not necessarily documented and all of that. We even heard that argument, and I'm not from New York, but I've got friends that are from there, with like the taxi drivers and the regular taxi drivers and all of and along those lines. But that's just kind of some of the conversations that I have heard. Nick, can we hear you now? And what are some of your thoughts?
Well, Nick's muted. Nick, your mic's off. So what's the theory there that thank goodness that
testing?
Yes, we hear you now, Nick.
Good. Yeah. I can overtalk Shaquille. That'd be really great.
Oh, damn. See, because Nick's not actually my boss, so I can,
That's true. You can say what. Freedom of speech does exist in Australia, mate. It's barely. Oh wait, that's right. I forgot. You guys don't have a Bill of Rights. So we don't have shut you off any time. Unbelievable. A country of that size, stature doesn't even have a Bill of Rights. There are no rights in Australia. Okay, so the rest of the world does need to know this. No rights in Australia.
Even New Zealand has. Even New Zealand has a Bill of Rights. But no, we as my lawyer exasperatedly always tries to explain to me, we have rights written into states, and there's like criminal investigation rights and all this other stuff. But I just think that there should be something hard in our constitution, like every other country has.
Right? Yeah. Which means, I'll translate all that gobbledygook, Mark. They don't have a Bill of Rights, okay? And what is lawyers speak, because they're not going to speak clear. Well, we got a little state law. No. Australia, no Bill of Rights. They're still turn of the medieval century. They still worship the Queen. I mean, the Queen to them is like, the Queen of England is coming.
All the millionaires, that leave countries like the United States to try.
Well, he froze up. Okay, first of all, now so the internet has silenced him, Mark.
I see that, but what do you think about this whole concept of,
first of all, you start off with the millionaires leaving the United States. Millionaires are not leaving the great United States of America. The world's largest economy. I'm going to go get my mansion section in the Wall Street Journal, and you'll see what's happening, Shaquille, here. That we live in like $40 million homes here in the United States of America, the world's largest economy. So it's not like people are fleeing here, Mark. You know that people want to come here. We're putting our gates up to keep the flood of Canadians coming in. Oh, speaking of Canadians, we have Sasha Starr.
Good morning, everybody. So the big news is that Canada is now allowing the cruise ships to have some of its ports. I don't know too many ports except Vancouver, Montreal, and some on the eastboard. Well, there is probably St. John, Halifax, and all other well-known beautiful places. So it's time to start travel. Yeah, Vancouver.
I mean, I cruised almost out of Vancouver. I cruised out of Seattle. Okay.
No, Vancouver is definitely Vancouver. Yeah. Victoria is another gorgeous place.
Right. Yeah. Well, can us Americans go invade your country? Can we enter your country? No, not yours. We don't want to go there. We don't want to go there anyway. Okay, you guys.
You can start invading our country. I think next month. I think 21st of August. That's the date when the border will be lifted, and you can start your invasion. Although now, with the latest statistics on coronavirus in the United States, I'm not so sure that on August 21st everything will be lifted.
Well, that's because we got a lot of morons who live here. They reside here, and they pass around misinformation. and they go,
I take it you watched yesterday's show, Nick. I guess these are all the Trump supporters.
I did watch yesterday's show, and
these are all the Trump supporters that don't want to get the vaccines because they're horrible people.
They're horrible people. Okay, wait. No, wait. Let's not raise them to the level of horrible people. They're deplorables. Okay, if they actually were able to increase a little bit better in their social economic status, they would be horrible people. But they're below horrible people. They're deplorables.
Well,
because the thing is, and the thing is, I think the real problem with the liberals here, their so-called left people, is they're way too kind on these people. They should just call them out and tell them what they are. I mean, they're idiots. The thing is, if they follow the science, if they follow what you know the reason Shaquille they didn't follow the science, they failed science.
Hey, Nick, I hear you on the science.
Unlike you, Nick, these people have enough self-respect not to trust government and just listen to anything.
It has nothing. What government? What are you talking about? Government?
What would you trust
these are okay, dude. These are scientists. People. Remember when you went to school, they're the people that top in your class like me, and then there's the bottom of the class, which I'm not going to discuss here. Okay,
well, these are the white glasses, so you know.
Okay, these are the smart people that did well in school, that pass science. They become PhD scientists, MD PhDs.
Yeah, and most of them,
they study this stuff ad infinitum, and then they discover, like they did with John Salk, the smallpox vaccine or the polio vaccine, and then they use it to stop wiping out humanity. Now you have some moron who didn't even pass science, who reads something off of Facebook, who believes that it's going to kill them or something bad's going to happen. Oh, I'm not going to take it because I listened to John Jones, who said vaccines are horrible. There's mercury in your system. Come on, Shaquille. And why are we being nice to these people that graduate in the bottom 10% of their class?
Well,
forget them.
Firstly, I'll just address a couple of points. Those nerdy people that were the top of the class, generally speaking, I was an exception to this rule. Generally speaking, they were the kids that were like the school prefect. You know, the kid that thought they were a teacher and would like job you in because you had your shirt untucked. It was those kids.
Oh, wait. This guy's so full of it.
I want to blindly be obedient to those kids, right?
Okay. You're so full of it. Okay, and this is the reason. This is the reason I played chess. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no, I've been nice to the teacher and I'm good at chess and hence my ratings high. Hey, Sasha, you ever buddy up to the tournament director because then you're going to win your game? It doesn't happen, dude. And the same thing with math, science, chess. They're all tests, my friend. And if you buddy up to your teachers, it ain't going to help you. Look, it ain't going to help you. Okay. These are the smart people of the world. They develop vaccines. They are the ones that we even put on this show over a year ago. They're the ones that are actually going to solve the COVID-19. It's not going to be the MDs. It's the MD/PhDs. These are people you never see because they're beyond. MDs have a certain amount of, bedside manners. The MDs, PhDs have no bedside manners at all. But the thing is, they 24/7 they consume all this data and study this ad infinitum since they were little tiny boogers till now. Now they develop a vaccine. And then you got some moron on Facebook. Well, I read a Facebook article from some idiot that says I shouldn't take it. And we're supposed to listen to him? Why would you listen to that guy? Come on. Sasha, it's like chess. Oh, I had 1100 player who said Scholars Mate is better than anything else out there. You can listen to 1100 player, Sasha, anytime soon.
You're laughing. No, you're not going to listen to them.
No, you're not going to listen to 1100 player. I'm not going to listen to these idiots.
But I want to tell you something interesting happening in Canada. A couple of things. Okay, one of them is it's becoming totally socially unacceptable if you haven't been vaccinated. So people, not only is it people wouldn't invite you to a party or their house or whatever, they actually even talk to them less on the phone because on the phone. But this is the problem is talking to these people on the phone. They're becoming quite hostile to the idea of vaccinated, and even if you don't discuss it, it will crop up in your.
I got that. I was hiring a contractor. The guy goes, I don't believe in vaccine. I said, well, I don't believe in you working for me either. Goodbye. And sent him on his way. I mean, as a pure-hearted capitalist, which I am.
Now,
Even though Shaquille thinks I'm some weird flaming.
So
liberal.
right now,
I will deploy my capital with people that have vaccines.
But let me just go back to what you were saying before I had my second internet outage. You
pay your bill, dude. I know you're unemployed. Pay your internet bill.
I know. Well, exactly right. But what you're talking about is like all the science is in, all the science is in. No, it's not. The science isn't in. Scientists have disagreed about a lot of different things. Doctors have suggested certain treatments, and they've been shut down by social media. The mainstream legacy media won't publish what they say. They're protested against by people that don't know anything about science. So you're just picking and choosing which scientists you want to listen to. And I think that you vastly underestimate the conservatives in America if you think they're all just
no. The thing is, my business partner is one of these conservatives in America. I mean, he follows all that to a certain point because he's the old style conservative that actually has a brain. Now you have the new style conservatives that apparently left their brains on the kitchen table on the way out the door. And that's the real problem that we're seeing is you got these brainless people walking around.
Do you want to explain to the audience, given that you're so clever and all, what mRNA?
I can tell these people on Facebook. Okay,
do you want to tell them what mRNA is, what its long-term repercussions are, all that sort of stuff? mRNA.
Okay, well that's the reason. Hey, Shaquille, this is one reason, like you defer to grandmasters, why they pay certain openings rather than 1,100 players who don't know what they're doing. Okay, so I like to follow the grandmaster.
Exactly.
I like to follow Castro.
But the problem is
to follow Carlson.
But the problem
These people follow nobody. They follow 1,100 players.
That
I will not follow 1,100 players.
Anybody who is in this field knows that there is some people that believe certain things within the field. There are some people that believe other things in the field, just like climate change. There's a lot of scientists that don't believe.
No. Stop this climate change thing. There aren't a lot of scientists. They did a study on it, the IPCC. There's 3% of the scientists who believe it's not anthropomorphically caused. 3%. 97% says it is anthropomorphically caused. And what you do is you go, I'm going to pick up the 3% and wave their little banner around.
No, because when you do these studies and these poll tests, you ask questions in a certain way, right? So that you get the answer that you want. You go, oh, look at this. It's like, for example, the ads that you get where they say, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Colgate or recommend Oral-B or whatever. What they're really doing is they're saying to dentists, would you recommend one of these 5 toothpastes? And of course, they have all these different lists, and Colgate or Oral-B or whatever is in each list. And then when all the dentists say, of course, I'd recommend toothpaste, they go, well, look, 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this toothpaste. It's all just a whole heap of crap that's being used to suppress people's voices. And we all know.
Nick, I think the far bigger issue is that all those people who are going on Facebook, and even if there's only 3% that believe that the vaccines are dangerous for you or so on, but they will still do that in order to get likes. That's all what they're preoccupied, to get as many likes as possible. And let's see if somebody will write, please take vaccine, it's good for you, it will help you to be healthy. Are you going to put a like under that post? Probably not, most likely not. But if somebody else says, vaccine fails, vaccine is horrible, oh, you will not be able to have kids after you take a vaccine.
They're making things up. They're FOS. Okay.
Wait. We're making things up. Now, my internet was a little bit shaky. Did Mark in his monologue say that the Delta variant had something to do with climate change? Was that something that I heard, or did I mishear that, Mark? Please.
You'd have to talk to Mark, and he's here. So under the best evidence rule that you're totally aware of.
Is that what you said?
In law school, you learn the best evidence rule. Best evidence comes from the person who spoke, not from me. So don't ask me that question, Counselor, when the best evidence is sitting right over there. So to ask
what was the question again? I have to remember what
Did you, because I'm not sure if I'd heard correctly or not, did you suggest that the Delta variant, that some people are suggesting that the Delta variant is caused by climate change?
No, that is not what I suggested. I was just bringing up different things going on in the news.
Does anyone have a hearing aid for sale? Shaquille's getting up there in years. He probably needs a hearing aid because obviously he's not hearing the right thing. But the word of today is odd. Oppositional defiance disorder. Okay, this is DSM-4, DSM-5, et cetera, which is the diagnostic statistical manual, which diagnoses basically, your psychological conditions, which can be psychosis or neurosis. All right, these are what they call neuroses.
Hey,
I'm giving my lecture on psychology. Why am I being interrupted?
I'm sorry, but I had a question for you, Nick, and then I had a statement for Shaquille that he'll be glad about, everything that we can get back to oppositional defiance disorder. But it actually involved a legal case. But I'll get to Shaquille first. Shaquille would have enjoyed a show that was airing yesterday that we sometimes stream on this show, which is my friend Coco McMillan's.
Yeah, I saw it. Coco McMillan yesterday.
Yeah, Coco had a guest on Steve Walker, Walker, who is a motivational speaker, media person, and all of that. He actually had a very interesting story about medicine, which kind of comes down to what you said. He went, and this was years ago, he had like a fungus that was developing or some sort of ailment developing on his body. He did not know what was going on and all of that. So he was trying to figure out what was happening. He actually went to another continent. He went to Africa, and one of the countries over there, the doctor was like, this is so-and-so, because apparently it's very common over there, and then gave him his medicine he needed to cure it like in a day or two. But when he did it here, the doctors were a little bit confused, and apparently I think either that case or another case, the doctor himself was using WebMD or one of those medical kind of things in order to look up stuff. He was literally looking it up on the thing instead of like doing his own practices and things of that nature. So he was using like that whole WebMD site to try to find out a cure and all of that, which I found kind of obscure and kind of unusual and everything. So I'm just going to bring that up. But the thing I was ready to ask really quickly, Nick, and we got Steve getting ready to join us as well. The thing I was getting to ask you is, I was surprised that this even became a case, because this sounds like it's a non-case, but it became a big case in the news and everything. And it comes back to what Sasha was talking about, which is cruises. But this was before the pandemic. And apparently some people were there visiting with their toddler, and the toddler, unfortunately, and very sadly, fell to their death and everything. And they tried to sue Royal Caribbean for basically trying to blame Royal Caribbean negligence and all of that. And of course, the court recently, I think like just yesterday or something, came out. It was basically like, no, y'all folks are crazy because y'all should have been responsible. As a matter of fact, what they said is that the court finds that a reasonable person through ordinary usage of his senses would have known the dangers associated with the conduct they were doing and everything. So they were basically like saying that, anybody would realize that you don't hang a baby over
I saw that. He hung his baby over the Royal Caribbean, which is incredibly stupid. Hey, Steve Rowell is here, so we have to give him a warm welcome, don't we? It looks like he's even in a studio.
Yeah, I'm in PBS Carolina today.
PBS Carolina.
Moderating. I'm a commentator here every few weeks, and I might have to go say bye to the host of the show and then come back, but I'll be doing my last jab today, a monologue. So. Well,
you should jab Shaquille. He's giving me a rough time.
He was reading out conditions like OJJ from the DSM-4, and I said there is another mental health condition in the DSM-4 and 5, and I think it's called being a Democrat.
Let's bring our latest liberal in from New Zealand. Let's bring in Rakesh.
I'll be right back.
Rakesh has arrived. My Steve is
long time no see, Rakesh.
Rakesh, I'm shocked you're still alive after what we heard in our news in the United States, that you were consumed by a volcano and lava's all over the place in Rotorua and New Zealand went under. But again, that news comes from the Republican Party, which we all follow very diligently, because that's all truth in news. So,
I'm just glad that I'm an independent, nonpartisan.
You're an Australian. What do you know about politics?
So there's no reason for me to take partisan views of anything.
I don't even know what parties they have over there.
The worst prime minister that country's ever had. I thought that last one that you had, Helen.
But half the people in the United States don't know what goes on in Australia, and the other half doesn't care. Okay, so that's what goes on in Australia. In New Zealand, what's that? That's a place for Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. Other than that, New Zealand has no use in this world.
No, wait a minute. Back up, Nick, because New Zealand's actually has some very interesting politics. Of course, we've talked about it before. Apparently, they were doing better with the coronavirus and in terms of getting the word out about vaccines.
Of course they could, because they could lock down that tiny little island. It's an island in the middle of bloody nowhere. If you had an island in the middle of nowhere and you locked it down, how tough could that be? It's not that tough. And look at Australia. It's a big island also in the middle of nowhere. And the only thing that they have is they can look down to that little island in the middle of nowhere called New Zealand. That's the reason they can lock
New Zealand.
Then we have real countries. Excuse me.
New Zealand is supposed to be a part of Australia, and the reason why they are even a country is because Australia let them. Because Australia has the decency to respect the will of people.
Okay, but then we have real countries like the United States of America, the world's largest economy, a big global power. As a matter of fact, I even got a book from David Walker.
Rakesh, can you tell me?
We are a superpower, baby.
You inform Nick that World War
You can kiss my ring.
The Americans went to New Zealand and demanded and bullied New Zealand to keep their nuclear weapons in New Zealand. And New Zealanders went, "No, not doing it, not doing it." And America had to give up. Tell him all about how America couldn't even bully little tiny New Zealand.
Oh, well, the thing is, I wasn't in charge of America at that time, and I were the Democrats. If we were, we would sit and we would strangle them by putting a blockade around that tiny little country until they all starve to death, and that's what we should have done. But I think we're being too nice in our international relations.
Speaking of being too nice, I got to cut you off again, Nick. I know you're the boss, but Rakesh hasn't been here for a while. I want to hear what Rakesh has got going on in the world, what's happening. We were talking earlier about a little bit around climate change and other things. I know Rakesh has got some science background, but we were also talking about everything from minimum wage to negligent laws and a couple of other things going on. But Rakesh, you haven't been here in a while. So what's shaking in New Zealand and what's going on in your part of the world? And have you been watching our tit-a-tats, and do you have anything to add to the tit-a-tats?
Yeah, I've been. I was particularly interested in your chat about education the other day, and it's quite out here in New Zealand. It's in terms of the COVID and stuff, is almost non-existent, and in terms of the politics is pretty quiet. Jacinda Ardern's pretty much running the show. The National Party is in disarray, so there's really no opposition, and so insofar as we still have the quarantines and things like that for people who come in, only citizens and residents are allowed. And of course, a few people from the film industry were let in, from the American film industry, were let in to New Zealand to do a film and whatever. So, nothing major that has been happening. In terms of in terms of generally your discussions of what's happening in the world, I think STEM is in terms of education. STEM is still very, very important, and manufacturing has to be carefully and strategically planned by each country. If anything, the COVID has underlined that no country can afford to be without proper immunity, because the dangers of leaving one factory or two factories in the world producing vaccines are fairly identifiable. Now everybody is producing vaccines because you need to. The times have changed. Biological warfare is possible. I don't know whether it happened with COVID, but it's possible. And not only that, sorry?
Okay. Nick mentioned something about a volcano in Rotorua. I haven't heard about that. What has there been a volcano explosion?
There is a super volcano in Taupo. This is one of the ways.
It hasn't gone off, has it?
Yeah, no, it hasn't erupted. There's volcanic activity around the world, but there's no major. What are you
talking about, Nick?
Hey, listen. It's like this, Shaquille. Okay, I learned from your friendly conservatives. If you don't like the news, you want to make it more excited, just make it up. Okay, so the thing is, then people start
there's been a
around
volcano explosion, like, across the pond.
yeah, from volcano explosion that killed all the people in New Zealand.
There's been one in Japan. There's been one somewhere in Central America. There's been sort of activity in New Zealand.
We had that one on the South Island not long ago, right? Was that last year?
On the North Island.
Strangely, the South Island doesn't have any volcanic activity. It just has.
What was that disaster that you guys just had?
Hey, what time is it over there in New Zealand anyway, Rakesh?
I just happened to be staying up late, so I just thought I'd just think.
Well, what time is it? Give me a time, like
2:30.
2:30.
Yeah.
See, that's what I was telling you, Mark. I said the reason you don't see the reason you don't see Rakesh, it's like weirdo time over in New Zealand. Okay, the only reason Shaquille doesn't relate to time.
Because I'm a weirdo.
That doesn't affect him. Time is not something. But Rakesh is actually a real person. So he gets up in the morning, goes to bed at night. Shaquille, not real person. He doesn't have to go to bed.
I'm really Nick's alter ego. I'm a deep fake, and Nick's really got he's freak.
But I decide I'm going to write educational banners. Speaking about education at the bottom, because the Americans don't know much about New Zealand. So I'm running a banner so they can understand. Film industry only reason for the country plus cheap. Okay. Other than that, you don't need to know much more about that country because there's nothing more to learn.
Well, New Zealand, to be fair, does have the second best agricultural products in the world.
It does?
It does.
It has the second what?
He says it has the second best agricultural products in the world. We know the United States is first. Okay, we know U.S. is first because we're first in everything. So they're number 2. Who's number 3? Okay.
I will point out the most expensive steaks in your Michelin-starred restaurants in the United States all come from Australia for a reason.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we're not that familiar with Australia. I bet half the people in the United States have never been over to your island or whatever you call it. I don't know if it's an island, a continent, just one big.
We are an island. We are a country unto ourselves.
Is it just one big desert? I mean,
and you have to be careful about upsetting us because, unlike New Zealand, you actually do need us because we are the ones that provide all the uranium, plutonium for your nuclear weapons. So be nice.
Got a point there. But
I didn't know that.
I have a question for everybody here, including Sasha, which is I was up also late, but I was up in one of those app rooms and everything, and they've got into a real deep discussion around AI. It was around AI, and they were actually talking about Sophia, which is, that robot that goes around doing press conferences, going on to Jimmy Fallon and other places. So there were some people there that were concerned about AI taking over our jobs and eventually, humans being vegetation and not really having that much to do because the computers were going to be running everything. And we've seen that even in some of our department stores and other things where AI is starting to take over. So Rakesh, I'll start off with you, but I want to hear from everybody. As a scientist, should we be concerned about AI literally taking over the planet and becoming in control? Because I even mentioned there was a guy on there who was a wrestler, like a WWF wrestler, and I said, well, I can see an AI robot taking on a wrestler and everything, and he said, Mark, it's already happened. It's going on now. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that. But definitely I was wondering your thoughts about AI and do the humans that are watching here need to be concerned about AI running rampant and running amok?
AI doesn't have a life of its own. It depends on what we use it for, how we empower it, and how we become dependent on it. So it's very much in our control. What we decide to surrender in terms of our, utilities and things like that. If we surrender it to AI, then and we don't understand it, then you are in danger. But if you do have a large percentage of your population that is capable of understanding what is AI and what its strategic role is, then yes, you could you could hold it in control. But if you have a kind of a plutocracy, information technology plutocracy, then there is a danger of lapsing into under control of a technology you don't understand, and you've given it the power to make life and death decisions, then yes, you're in trouble. We human beings have already been alerted to it, and I don't think it's a major issue really. If we the Turing test is still a Turing test, not some robot's test. So I wouldn't be too worried about it now.
She just took over while you were talking.
Good morning.
No, but it is still.
Yeah, there's Sophia. It looks like she's taking over.
Sophie took over half the screen.
Yeah, she took over half the screen. And Sasha, would you be willing to take on a robot with AI in computers? Because I mean, you're a grandmaster in chess, but apparently these AI robots are much smarter than us and everything. So I'm wondering, would a grandmaster be able to take on an AI computer like Sophia?
No, grandmasters cannot take computers right now. It's already happening in the last 15 to 20 years. The best computer playing programs defeating anybody, including world champion. However, lately this artificial intelligence program, forgot its name. It's a game changer. It's the most beautiful program, AlphaZero, which is playing now, according to some experts, to a level of 3,500 rating, and the world champion has 2850 plus, something like that. So you can imagine what's the difference. But not only that, that's been around now for a while. What's happened is that AlphaZero, first of all, it's taught itself to play, so there were no human or any other instructions which it followed. It just played million games per second against itself, and that's how it learned how to play chess. And after that, it defeated, at that time, the strongest chess playing program, Stockfish, and it's defeated really soundly. But furthermore, it's playing in a beautiful, highly aesthetic style. It sacrifices pieces, and its game just beautiful to watch. I have a book, A Game Changer, which I mentioned before, and I've shown some of these games on my chess show on Saturday. By the way, tomorrow will be a show, and the name of the show is Live Chess is Back. So there are some live tournaments are being played and so on. So this is what I would say. How far can you go if the artificial intelligence program is playing extremely strong, yet it's playing beautiful chess? Because before Stockfish, like, it was very strong program also at almost the same level, but it was playing very boring style of chess. It played 500 moves games, and it moved pieces back and forth. It was very tedious. It was horrible to watch. I saw one or two games and I gave up, and I decided I'll never watch this artificial intelligence chess until AlphaZero came.
It's good to be back, guys. And
hey, Steve, glad that you're back. And actually, I was going to toss it to you anyway, because I was going to say, I know you've got aspirations of everything from possibly state to, who knows, maybe we're going to have you go federal and everything, but you don't have to run anymore. Apparently, AI is going to be handling your campaign, and then you can just take care of the kids and everything else, and there'll be another you running the shows here and another you that's running the government. So apparently we're going to have 3 or 4 years.
Steve is just an avatar.
What do you think about that?
Well, I love it. I love it. And I'm very active on the council, and I get to a lot of places. And one day I told one of my colleagues, Liz Johnson, who's our mayor pro tem, I said, well, how do you know this is really Steve Reair here? What if I'm like a hologram, like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi? You know, so they had these like technologies where you had like these multiple Steve Reirs. Like,
well, you know, they did that on the movie with Bourdain. They took artificial intelligence in and made his voice and everything so that you don't really need people anymore. You can just take their avatar. As a matter of fact, when Shaquille goes to retire, since we already have his image, we're just going to have him sit there and talk, incessantly about Australia, and they'll think, hey, it's Shaquille, but it's not. It's Shaquille's avatar.
Well, they actually did that. They actually did that with Obama, right? So one of the guys did like a deep fake and then showed his real face
right
behind something. And yeah, so they do these deep fakes, and they're quite good. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, right. I mean, and you're going to see the future is that direction. Even though Pepper got fired because SoftBank spent a lot of money on Pepper, this computer program, and apparently she was kind of a novelty, but she wasn't that bright, so they fired her. Okay, so she's having a hard time getting a job. But in the meantime, what Sasha's talking about, AlphaGo and Stockfish, those are standard in the chess world. On Lee Chess, I use Stockfish all the time to analyze games, even though sometimes the analysis isn't really that great, believe it or not. I'm wondering about that program.
It depends what time it has to think. You see?
Oh, really? Okay, right. Because I was looking at some of their lines, I was going, "Are you serious?" And then the thing is, and then there's another one called AlphaGo, which is a killer program. And AlphaGo is just a deep, fast learning program. Plays backgammon, chess, all the different games. So the humans are going to eventually find their place to be in an inferior role to computers, artificial intelligence. We're already seeing that trend.
I don't agree with that at all, Nick.
What do you mean you don't agree with? How could you agree with
let me explain. So firstly,
an interesting development is quantum computing, where there have been strides with Google and also in China. So
yeah, well, quantum computing, basically what they're doing is they're
well, you forgot very important things. The advantage of artificial intelligence and all these programs is they are immune to coronavirus. Nothing terrible can happen to them like human beings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, they're definitely superior. We use them to take off airplanes, land airplanes. Eventually, as you see, they're going to have driverless cars. But basically, a lot of the airplanes that you fly in are with computer-based technology, and you press a auto land, and it'll just land your bloody plane for you. So using the glide path coming down.
All these technologies are still they're still an extension of us, and there's certain things that computers can do.
Oh, you're trying to uphold the human race. Give it up, Shaquille.
If I can finish, there are because you'll be pleased. I'm about to blast conservatives. The computer programs do certain things that are useful to us, but these conservatives, these traditionalists, boring, anti-technology people, what do they want? They want us not to make any progress or any technological advances. Like, we've got the ability to make technological advances. Let's not use it. These will be the same people who want to bring back candle makers. Like they go and live for the Amish or something. Technology's here. And the idea that all these people are going to be out of work is just a complete and utter nonsense. Now, I remember when we changed over from tapes to CDs, and you get your Walkman and you shake it, you'd be like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And before we changed from like CDs to records, and some people had both, like I grew up, we had records and CDs, and you'd hear all these traditionalists going, oh, but when you listen to the vinyl, it has like better acoustics and it's better technology, all that sort of stuff. Do you guys remember those days? What a load of crap, seriously. So yes, I think we should have as many technological advances as possible, and these traditional conservatives that think technology is like, the big sort of Satan taking over the world and taking over humanity completely.
In fact, technology is the hope of humanity.
I have one question to you. May I?
Yes.
If you will take a supercomputer, artificial intelligence, the best program, and you will feed it with all information available about vaccines against coronavirus, what do you think would be the answer of that program? Should people use vaccines, or they should absolutely not?
I think what the answer would be wouldn't have anything to do with vaccines. I think the computer would teach us how to create the most deadly virus you could possibly have that would wipe all humans out in like 2 days, and then Nick would get his way and the computers will take over.
I think what's probably more realistic is that computers will help us design things to neutralize or counteract using CRISPR any kind of virus that is likely to be very dangerous for us.
Yeah.
So there's only so much biohacking you can do, Rakesh. I mean, they're talking about the ethics of changing genetics using CRISPR to make these designer babies, but not everything can be just taken out. You can't just take out heart disease markers and all those other things. And you certainly can't, as far as I know, you can't put into genes using CRISPR the ability for those genes to create spike proteins and that sort of stuff.
Right, absolutely.
No, I'm not sure that today CRISPR has a certain degree of limitation. It has certain requirements of genomes. The way the acids, the amino acids are structured. But I believe that with quantum computing, the enormous part of quantum computing, put it together, you can use it. Technology is just like a brick. You can break a window or you can build a house. So it's a question of how you want to use it. If we are a species that is not suicidal, then we will build a house. We will not break a window.
Rakesh, you've got 4 Democrats there, right? That have supported BLM and rioting.
I don't know where Democrats. I'm
of course they're going to break the window. They're not going to build a house with that brick. They're going to riot and loot.
I don't think binary as far as politics are concerned. I think eventually everybody is interested in their own interests. Parties will soon be irrelevant because you don't need elections. You can run everything by referendum with computing technology. You don't need politicians.
Speaking of referendums, and I'm going to get us back into, before I do my last jab today, I did want to open it up to talk about Cuba and Haiti because that's what I was talking about today at ABS. But real quickly, there's a recall election effort in Raleigh. The city of Raleigh, to get 14,000 signatures, can call for a special election to oust the mayor of Raleigh, Marianne Baldwin. The reasoning behind this is that in a closed session to the public, they decided to extend their terms for a year to wait for the census data. But it seems like she's in hot water. We're going to be watching it very closely. I don't know if it's ever happened in Raleigh, but it is a referendum. And it makes me wonder, should we have special elections like that, where if you don't like people in office, you just get the signatures and you vote them out? I mean,
why not? If Switzerland does it, why not?
Why not? I mean, I believe
Switzerland is a direct democracy. The United States is. I can't think of any other country that is. Switzerland's a direct democracy, so the people get a lot more say in individual government, like legislation and things like that. Whereas most other places are representative.
Right. So I think
one has to move past the representative because you can do everything by information technology now.
So real quickly, let's turn the ship there. I want to get the panel's view today on World Edition on Haiti and Cuba. We are, and then my last jab will be, so I'm hoping Shaquille Latimer has opposing views with me on this issue so I can give a good close. But hint, hint, wink, wink. But what are we thinking right now about Haiti? You've got, the assassination now. They're linking Mr. Christian Senal to the assassination of President Moisey. And then in Cuba, you've got protests all over Cuba, all over the United States. That the government, the socialist authoritarian government, isn't doing a good enough job of getting medicines and food, and that you have inflation. What are you all's opinion on this? Did Trump? I'm a little bit confused about what Trump's policy was on Cuba and why we're having these kinds of insurrections in these Caribbean democracies. I'll start with you.
Hang on, wait. Cuba's not a Caribbean democracy. You just said it's a communist place. It's not a democracy.
It's authoritarian, but it was trying to make it a democracy. Shakir, what are your thoughts about Haiti, Cuba, and U.S. foreign policy towards these nations?
Well, as I've said previously, I can't make any comment on Haiti, but as far as Cuba, I find myself, this weird world that we live in, agreeing with Jen Psaki, who said that they're trying communism, which is a failed ideology. I had to take a double take and rewind it when I saw that to see, did she really say that, or was that a deep fake? Communism is failed, and the people over there are not protesting because they want, medical care and medicines and this and that. They're protesting because they want some freedom. That's what they want. The huge percentage of the money that goes into Cuba and the Cuban economy is money that's being transferred by Cuban Americans into there. The very corrupt regime is taking that money and issuing them. They're taking the American dollars, issuing them with worthless local currency. You can't buy anything from a store in Cuba unless you go to a government-owned store where the prices are inflated, and you have to use American dollars to do it. And the Cubans that are out there screaming for their liberty, they want freedom. They're flying American flags. And of course, they should continue to keep those sanctions on Cuba. until they give freedom to the people and stop oppressing them. And if not, maybe it's time for America to go down there, because America's foreign policy seems to be that you'll go all over the world to deal with issues that affect countries far and wide, except for the countries closest to you.
Oh, I'm getting scared now because I'm agreeing with everything Shaquille Latimer is saying. So today, my closing monologue will be giving some advice to President Biden on foreign policy. But Sasha Star, what are your thoughts?
Your advice to Biden is to listen to Shaquille. I like it.
Yeah. Sasha Star, your thoughts on Cuba and Haiti?
On Cuba, of course, the process of changes in Cuba is a little bit late. It should have been done 10, if not 20 years ago. Because obviously, when Soviet Union heavily subsidized Cuba and carried single-handedly almost all its economy, it all stopped at the year of 1991, when Soviet Union just ceased to exist. Okay, so there was no longer help from Russia to Cuba. And Cuba were still afloat until even now, because they're very resilient people. And right now, what's happened because of the coronavirus, all these processes really started to happen. They should have been done earlier, much earlier, but it's happening right now. So what's in the future? I would like to mention that the last interactions between Biden and Putin, I've listened to some analysis of these interactions, and it appears to me that they came to sort of agreement that whatever East, North, South America, Central America, it's all sphere of influence in the U.S., and the U.S. can do anything what they want, when they want, and so on. Now, all the areas around Soviet Union, such as Ukraine, all the Asian republics, all the stans, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and all that stuff, this is all Russian territory, essentially de facto, and Russia can do there anything, what they want and when they want. I think that it's a quite practical agreement. It's a reasonable agreement. A lot of people won't like this agreement for sure. But nevertheless, if that's the case and if that's happening, very soon we'll find out whether it's true or not. And Cuba probably will be the first testing ground to see how all this new system works.
Wonderful. Mark Lee, what are your thoughts? Rakesh, everybody?
I'll jump in. Yeah, like I said, in terms of Cuba, definitely I'd be curious to see, I hear the people chanting, and I definitely think that democracy is something that is needed in Cuba. But, we also have to reflect on Cuba's history before Castro and before the government that it's got now and everything, which was actually a very severe dictatorship. So I don't want us to go from one, are we going to go down there, free the people from the communist dictatorship that they've got in order to basically create another dictator system that it's just as bad, if not worse, because that's happened in the past as well. And we have actually dabbled occasionally in areas around the U.S., and it hasn't always worked out that well. I'm thinking about like what happened in Panama and a couple of other places where we've tried to go in and have some government intervention, and then things didn't go the way that we were expecting. Some people can even argue that that's what we did with the Noriega is part of the drug war that we were talking about last time. And we know that those drug gangs are still very prevalent and still out there. So like I said, I think that there's got to be some sort of end game within the strategy. So don't just go down there kind of like going in and meddling with the situation without having an end game of what we're putting in place of what we're taking out. So I agree that what's there is not working.
Can I just sort of add to that, though, that, I don't want to see any country be ruled by dictatorship, but, Cuba, a lot of these issues with America is because the Soviets, Cuba's saying to the Soviets, yeah, cool, we'll put nuclear warheads or nuclear missiles here and point them straight at America. What's America supposed to do? Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Of course America's going to react to that. And of course America's going to protect itself from that.
I think the Soviets are no longer a serious threat in that part of the world, and America should focus on trying to remain a first world country.
We have 2 more minutes left before I do my closing monologue. But what are some final thoughts today as we close out the week?
Well, I wanted to jump in here on this.
Yeah, jump in.
We already know what my thoughts are. The USA, we are the world's strongest military.
How come Russia has
mine Shaq. And see, the thing is,
more nuclear weapons than you do? How come China has got
ours are better, bigger, badder, and stronger?
How come China has a bigger military?
Hey, Shaquille, it's not even close. Go
who's got the most amount of personnel? Who's got the most amount of tanks? Who's got the most amount of navy vessels?
The world's strongest military is the United States of America, and we need to exercise our military strength.
It is the largest numerically, superior, country in terms of military, but in terms of technology, it has now gone to second place or perhaps even third place.
Oh, we're not even. Come on, guys.
Yes,
we are. I'm going to have to remind you.
Missiles are all still 19. Missiles are 1973 technology.
Okay, you guys in New Zealand and Australia don't know what a military looks
America
like.
is like
and what we should do.
The world is getting smaller, Nick. And
China and Russia don't even come close. Forget it, guys.
I've got a good end.
We need to invade Cuba. Invade Cuba now. Get rid of the dictatorship or whatever they have there. Clean them out and take over that stupid little island and run it the American way. It's in our backyard. Putin ain't gonna do jack because he already took over the Crimea. And China doesn't come around.
I never see what he wants to take over Cuba and then make them as a state so that they can be Democrats. The problem is you
make them another democratic state. You got it.
Yeah, but they won't do
it. Folks, I got to cut everybody off because it's almost time, and Steve's got to do his wind down and all of that in his monologue. But before Steve gets to his monologue, and I'm going to, toss it to him and everything, because that's the closing pattern that we do, and I like that pattern. I was going to tell you that this entire show, since we've been talking about AI, Nick is actually in New York, so this is actually his holographic version that is talking right now. So he's actually not here; he's in New York. So Steve, I'm tossing to you and your jabs, because Nick's not even really here; he's over in New York somewhere.
Well, today won't be a jab because I agreed with Shaquille Latimer, but I wanted to share my last thoughts with maybe some advice to President Biden as he looks at an unstable Haiti, an unstable Cuba, lines of protests of Cuban Americans in all across this country saying that Cuba is hurting from the pandemic, tourism down, wages down, price increases, inflation, lack of supply of goods in the market, and even in Haiti, lack of medicines getting to people. It's just a crisis within a president who's been assassinated there. Why are these democracies so unstable? And what can President Biden learn from this as he deals with our foreign policy? Well, Mr. President, first of all, I want to remind you that strong economies make strong democracies. I would agree with your predecessor, President Barack Obama, your boss for 8 years, who was assertive in his foreign policy on Cuba. Lifting the embargo, opening trade with Cuba will do nothing but increase their livelihoods. They'll be able to have higher wages, better access to technology. And as their lives economically get stronger, even with trade with the US, and this is good for America's economy too, their political voices will be heard. And Cuba can leave the socialist authoritarian regimes that they're in. But this takes assertion. And in terms of Haiti, I believe that you need to have a foreign policy that's continuing humanitarian aid. As Shaquille Latimer said, going across the world and just putting our military forces there and pulling them out may not be the best foreign policy. We can go in our backyard and invest, like former President Carter did, by instituting free and fair elections when he ran the Carter Center at Emory University when I was in college. How ironic it is that in the year 2021, Haiti's democracy is more fragile than it's ever been. We need to eliminate human poverty. We need to eradicate sickness and disease and make sure, just like we did after the Haiti earthquake, that we're investing in the institutions of democracy. Strong economies lead to strong democracies. My final advice to the president is that I think this president needs to get more assertive in foreign policy. I'm seeing more of a wait and see mode, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Cuba. I think we need a foreign policy that is consistent, that is firm, that tells the American people what we're about. But regard to the Southern Hemisphere, I'll close out with the fact that if we had a foreign policy that invested in the democracies of the Southern Hemisphere, Cuba, Venezuela, we may not have as many people fleeing to the country, going to the border. And this, in my opinion, would be the best thing the United States of America could do. I look forward to meeting you in the Oval Office, Mr. President. Perhaps I'll put an application in to be the ambassador to Cuba. Might be a job I would enjoy. Thank you so much. On that note, that's my last look today. And I can't wait to the last jab. Shaquille Latimer was too nice today. I actually agreed with about everything he said. So thank you so much. And live from the studios here at PBS Carolina, this is Steve Rao wishing you all a wonderful weekend wherever you are in the world. And may the light and love of our hearts always lift us out of the darkness. Thank you.